Good morning, everyone. This is Ask a Property Manager. I'm Andrew Schultz, Principal Broker here at Own Buffalo. We got quite a bit to cover today. We're going to talk about 8 tips for winter leasing. We got a couple of questions about purchasing income properties and how the leases are handled when that happens. We're going to get into all of that in just a second. I'm glad to be back in Buffalo, back in the studio. Feels good. I did want to mention before we get started, we did have a new, let's see here, let me jump to desktop. We did have a new income property listing that went on the market just earlier this week on Monday. This is 1550 Delaware Ave in Buffalo. This is a duplex, upper-lower. The upper unit's had a whole bunch of work done to it. The lower unit is a little bit older. The people who have been living in the lower unit have been there for an extended period of time. Let me jump forward here. You can see a couple photos of the lower unit. You can find this video on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Buffalo Foreclosed Homes. It'll also be up on our YouTube page in the very near future, probably by the end of the day today, so you can catch it over there as well. Easiest way to find us on YouTube is to search for Own Buffalo or head over to ownbuffalo.com and grab the link from there. If you guys could subscribe to our YouTube page, that would be awesome for us. We are trying to hit that 100 subscriber mark so we can get our custom URL. The other thing I wanted to mention is we are still offering our free consultation calls, 30-minute consultation call with me. It's not a plug or anything like that. I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm just here to try to help you out. If you have a situation, you have a question you don't want to ask on the Ask a Property Manager show, something along those lines, you can set up a free 30-minute phone call with me. And I believe I have times posted for this week and for next week. Let's see if this will load real quick. And you can register for these calls by heading over to ownbuffalo.com. It doesn't look like the second week is going to load here, but that's all right. So we're going to jump right into it. I want to get into the content for the day. We're going to start with our 8 tips for winter leasing. Jump in here. And our first tip for leasing during the winter, like I'm in a cold weather climate. I'm in Buffalo, obviously. It snows here. You saw the snow on the rooftop of Delaware there. We've had a pretty mild winter this year, all things considered, but we still have at least another month to go, month of February, and probably a piece of March as well. Our winters are long and our winters tend to be a little aggressive. So the first tip that I have, if you're looking to rent a vacant property during the winter months, is to market aggressively. Be on as many different websites as you can. Zillow, Trulia, HotPads, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, if that works in your market. There's several other websites out there that you can jump onto to help you market your property and get it out to as many people as possible. The more people that have eyes on your property, the easier it's going to be for you ultimately to rent that property. So make sure that your marketing is super aggressive so that you're covering everything that you possibly can. Be available to show quickly. When somebody is interested in the apartment, they might have other options that they're going to look at. So to not lose that potential lead, make sure that you're able to get out there and show the property quickly. Or some property managers are even moving to self-showing lockboxes, but just be available. Just know that nobody's going to rent the place sight unseen, for the most part anyway. You're going to have to be able to get out there quickly so that people can take a look at the property and see if it's something that they would be interested in renting. Keep it fresh. This is, especially in the Buffalo market, you'll find that people will do silly things like not have the heat on to a unit. No one's going to rent an apartment that's freezing cold when they walk in it. They want to experience a warm apartment when they walk in. They want it to be clean. They want it to be well maintained, fresh paint, things like that. And if it's possible, throw an air freshener in there. Let the place smell decent. You don't want an apartment that has kind of a stale smell or a skunky odor or something like that just from being closed up. So I would say if you have the ability to put in either a plug-in air freshener, I don't really like the plug-in ones. I tend to use the standalone ones just because I don't like leaving those plug-in ones unattended. But keep the apartment fresh. It'll go a long way in helping you get the place rented. Consider simple upgrades. So you might have some very small cosmetic type things that are turnoffs to potential tenants. So for instance, if you have we'll use a kitchen sink for instance. So if you have a kitchen sink that has rust in it, or the finish is chipping or peeling on the faucet, it's time to update that stuff. Upgrade it while the place is vacant, get some fresh photos. It'll show so much better, and the tenants will be a lot more appreciative when they do move in. Very simple, straightforward, easy thing to do. to make sure that you consider a few simple upgrades. Adjust pricing. It's that time of year. If you really need the place rented quickly, one strategy that you can take is to adjust your pricing, just to make yourself a little bit more competitive compared to other rentals on the market. For every, you've got to figure that for every month that the place sits vacant, you're losing money anyway. So it might make more sense to drop the rent by $50 or $100 to get it occupied, just to have that income coming in. Item number 6, that should say incentives. Sorry, I must have been a little too quick on the typing this morning. Incentives. We're starting to see this pop up in some markets. It's been a big thing in multifamily for a lot of years, where there would be an incentive. Some places will throw in, a TV for, the person that rents the apartment, half off the second month of rent, gift card, gift basket, something along those lines. Some sort of an incentive that kind of sets you apart from other rentals on the market. So that's a viable option as well. Number 7, try to extend the lease outside of the winter season. Most people don't like moving during the winter. That shouldn't really come as a surprise to anyone. The way that we combat this is, once we have found somebody that wants to take the apartment, we give them the option of extending that lease out so that they're not dealing with a winter move again, or a potential winter move again when their lease expires. So let's say that we move somebody in for February 1st. I'm going to try to take that lease from February 1st, 2020 to like April 1st, 2021. Just a little bit over a 12-month lease. It puts us back in the springtime, which is a much easier time to market and rent apartments. Makes it much easier for the tenant if they decide they want to move at their end of their lease to find a new place. It's just a better all-around situation. So that would be my recommendation, is once you do have somebody in place, try to extend that lease out just a touch so that you can save yourself a little bit of that winter rental aggravation the next time around. And finally, tip number 8, probably the most important tip out there: don't jump on the first tenant. Have a set of written screening criteria and stick to that criteria. The second that you start letting things, slide, or, well, it doesn't look that bad, or maybe we should give them a shot, or whatever the case may be, almost always that comes from a place of bad. I don't want to go so far as to say desperation, which was my first thought, but it comes from a place of concern. It comes from a place of worry, I guess is the better way of putting it. Just don't do it. Don't compromise your tenant standards just to get a tenant through the door. You will regret it. Anytime that you waive your written policy, you're opening yourself up to a world of headaches, potential fair housing concerns, and things like that. Your best bet is to stick to your criteria, have a written set of criteria, stick to your criteria, and don't let the winter months kind of take advantage of you and force you into a situation that you don't want to be in with a tenant that you might not have approved otherwise. So stick to your criteria. That's probably the number one most important tip that I can offer. And we will be having an episode down the road where we talk about establishing written criteria, the types of criteria that you can and can't look at, and things like that. That tends to be state specific, so we'll be talking about the New York market when we have that conversation. But again, that'll be down the road, and we'll make sure that you guys are aware of when that episode is coming up. I want to jump over real quick to our social media. We do have new episodes of Ask a Property Manager that come out every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is episode number 5. Episode number 6 will be airing next Wednesday. That'll be February 5th at 10 a.m. If you're not following us on Facebook, you should be following us on Facebook. Facebook.com/Buffalo Foreclosed Homes. That's where you're finding this video right now if you're watching it live. If you're watching us on YouTube, feel free to hop over to Facebook and give us a like over there. If you're watching on Facebook, do us a favor, head over to YouTube, search for Own Buffalo and subscribe, or hop over to ownbuffalo.com, click the link, and we'll get you over there. So now we're going to move on to our questions for the day. These were both pulled from I believe the Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group, which is a pretty decent group if you're not in it already. First question is, hello, I need guidance here. I'm planning to purchase a multifamily 4-unit in New Jersey. The problem is the seller won't deliver the house vacant. Tenants are on a month-to-month lease. The question is, if I purchase the property, what steps would I need to follow I'm going to assume that they meant to say to possibly to get my own tenants, since I believe the rent is way below market. So you have a few options here, and I don't know all the specifics of the rental law in New Jersey, so this is something you're going to have to do a little research on. But I wouldn't be so fast to try to force people out. Again, if you're in New Jersey, it's cold weather months, which means that you're going to have some time trying to find new tenants and things like that. If the place is meeting your needs, whether it be cash flow or appreciation or something like that, I wouldn't push someone out and create artificial turnover, because you're going to wind up having to go into the unit, probably do a bunch of work in it, spend a bunch of money. Now you've got a vacancy, you have to put a new tenant in, things like that. If the building is meeting what you need it to meet right now, let the existing tenants stay and don't create an artificial turnover. If you're able to bump rents up on the existing tenants that are on month-to-month leases, in New York, there are provisions in the law in New York that will allow you to do that on a month-to-month tenancy. Maybe that might be a better option, and let that natural turnover occur. When the tenant decides, okay, I'm going to go find another place, this just isn't working, it's too expensive for me now, or I feel like I can get a better value elsewhere. When that tenant naturally turns over, at that point I would do whatever work you need to do to the property, and at that point I would put your new tenant in. So if you can avoid the unnecessary turnover as soon as you take on the building, that would be the ultimate. I mean, maybe this is the play. Maybe this is what you're trying to do, is buy the building and rehab all 4 units. But if you don't have to do all 4 right away, keep the cash in your pocket, keep the cash flow from the existing tenants coming in, and upgrade as necessary. So that is my thoughts on that. We'll jump over to question 2. I'm inheriting tenants because I'm purchasing a property from another investor. There's a 4-year lease agreement in place. 4 years, wow. Do I have the current lease terminated and have tenants sign a new lease with me, or do I have the investors assign the lease to me? So in the state of New York, the lease will survive the sale of the property. So what that means is you're essentially inheriting that property with the existing tenants, subject to the terms of that existing lease. So there wouldn't be a need for an assignment per se, and there wouldn't be a need to terminate the lease and have a new lease signed. That lease would just automatically carry over to you as the new property owner under the same lease terms that are already in place. One thing that you really need to make sure of, given the fact that this is a 4-year lease, I'm almost wondering if this is a commercial deal. Since most residential leases, I don't think, go 4 years, and in some states you can't extend a lease beyond either 12 or 24 months. So make sure that you read that lease thoroughly. Make sure that you're comfortable with all the terms and conditions of that lease, because you're going to be subject to the terms and conditions of that lease when you purchase the property. At least here in the state of New York, the lease does survive the sale. So your mileage may vary. I'm not sure what state you're in. It didn't say on the question, but that's where we're at on that. Guys, that just about wraps things up for today. A little bit shorter episode than usual. I'm trying to experiment a little bit and see if this works better long form or short form, or what the best scenario is here. So I wanted to try a little bit of a shorter episode today to see how that goes. If you guys have questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. Let me think here if there's anything else I want to cover. Feel free to drop them down in the comments below. We do pull questions. You can also submit them on our website at ownbuffalo.com. I always forget to mention that. We try to pull questions that have that somebody submits to us that we can answer. That's our first priority, is the questions that come in directly to us. So if that's something that is of interest to you, there's multiple ways. Comment on this video. We'll take a look at it, possibly feature it in next week's episode. Other alternatives, you can drop into ownbuffalo.com. You can schedule your 30-minute consult there, or you can just ask a question and we will get in contact with you to answer it. Next episode is going to be next Wednesday, February 5th, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard. The current discussion topic is first party versus third party property management, essentially the difference between self-managing and hiring a manager. And I also want to get into, HUD just released some new guidance on emotional support animals and service animals in general. That literally just came out yesterday. I haven't had a chance to read through it all yet. You can find that on HUD.gov if you want to look at it before next week. But I'm going to try to at least compile a few notes on the new HUD guidance to share next week. So with that, guys, we're going to wrap things up here. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Again, this has been Andrew Schultz with Ask a Property Manager. Thanks for watching.